Welcome back, YouTube. On with tank sealing again. Part of this was yesterday afternoon, evening, after I got back from my flight, and the rib part of this is today. Had a lot of other stuff going on, so didn't make as much progress as I wanted. I knew it was a lofty goal to think I was going to get both tanks inboard ribs all sealed this weekend. I'll be lucky to have one of them done. But onward to victory. So there you see I got rid of the paper mixing palette thing I was using, and I'm trying to use a cup to mix my sealant. That did not work any better, and in fact that made it even a little more difficult because it just spread around everywhere in there and it was hard to get out of that cup. So my quest continues for the perfect way to mix this stuff up. I did figure out that I was making this harder on myself than I needed to. So I have a fridge in the garage, and I've been keeping the sealant in the fridge to help prolong its life. What I didn't even think about, and I don't know why, because the stuff is really, really thick, is that I've been pulling that out of the fridge probably about half an hour, maybe 45 minutes before I use it. It is still very cold and very thick. So yeah, it was harder to mix and harder to spread than it should have been. So, lesson learned. Today for the rib, I actually let it sit out for several hours and get to room temperature, and it was much easier to mix and spread, although I went back to trying to use the paper and it's still too sticky for that mess. So this first go, I mixed just enough to do the first few stiffeners there, and stopped before I ran out, so I knew I'd have enough to finish the fillets and cap the rivets there. That little silicone spatula you see me using, I ordered that in a set. It's for caulking, and when I used it on these, there's a smaller one I didn't realize I had, which works way better. I took the one that I was using for this over to the bandsaw and some sanding paper and reshaped it to a better shape, but they work really, really well for getting the fillets. Much better, I think, than popsicle sticks. So I've been using those a little more extensively. Yeah, there you see I've given up and I'm just using the tray from the cover for my little cheap scale, because at this point I didn't care. I just wanted something better to mix this stuff in. And using the silicone spatulas for mixing is also better than using the popsicle sticks. Here I'm using the end of one of the handles that I cut off from one of those little rubber spatulas, and it sort of worked out, but it's okay for mixing, but the silicone part of the spatula is way better. So another tried idea that was kind of abandoned. I slowed this part down. This is only double speed instead of my regular video speed, just so you can get an idea what it actually looks like to butter one of these up. And then back to ludicrous speed. These weren't too bad to put in, other than mixing up the sealant, because these get back riveted. They went in pretty clean and easy. I used a row of that wall-safe tape that I used for rivet tape on the other side, put my rivets in, squeezed these down, made sure I had good contact, and then just back rivet like normal. They worked out really well. The only downside to riveting all of this stuff so far that I can see, whether you squeeze it, use the rivet gun, back rivet, is once it gets all that schmutz up on there, it gets really difficult to see the manufactured head of the rivet to tell if you have over squeezed the rivet or under squeezed the rivet. You don't want to be wiping off any of that sealant with acetone right there, because obviously you want that to stay sealed, so you're trying to spread it off and get a good look at it. I'm sure there's some rivets that are one way or the other on this. Hopefully they're going to be okay, but they're really, really hard to see. So at this point in your riveting game, you definitely kind of have to have a good feel for it. But these went on really well, fairly uneventful. And you see me going along with that little piece of vent tube and putting a little dab over each of the manufactured heads. This wasn't even that messy. The rib, that's another story. Hopefully tomorrow I will be able to get the rest of the interior ribs in this right tank. I do need to go buy more acetone though. I am almost completely out. You definitely cannot have enough acetone when it comes to doing this because the cleanup alone is miserable. So there you can see me using the modified little spatula that I got. And again, it makes really nice fillets. And because it's flexible, it's good at kind of getting in there and helping to spread the sealant around. Works even better when the sealant is at room temperature. There's a couple of those I may have to go back over just to make sure I've got a really good fillet in, because it being as cold as it was also kind of trying to drag some of it out. But that was pretty much it for the stiffeners. Now I'm just cleaning up the mess I did make on the skin and on the tools, and it doesn't matter how much I clean. Come back a day later and you'll still find sealant all over tools you didn't know you had touched, or who knows what. Anyhow, there's what the inside looks like. There's the outside. Came out pretty good. Now the camera didn't start recording when I started the rib. I don't know why. So you missed me buttering it up and then sliding that thing into place and getting it lined up. It wasn't too bad to get lined up. That part kind of worked out really well. The only thing that gave me a little bit of trouble is I don't know if it was because it was lubed up with the sealant or what, but the top cleco on the bottom side just didn't want to hold. It kept wanting to pull, or at least pull back enough to leave a gap in the skin. I figured out after the fact if I just cleco in the other end rib to help hold it closed, it helps clamp everything for me. But that was the first round of rivets, and just like I mentioned before, it's very hard to tell if you've overshot or undershot those rivets. You just kind of got to keep your fingertip right there at the edge of the bucking bar and the piece you're riveting, and you can just kind of feel how much it smushes down when you're riveting it, and then look at it as best you can. And what I don't realize, which I should have, is I am just dragging my elbows all through the sealant in there and then resting them on things and spreading sealant around. The rib got really messy. So I took the clecos out. I'm putting the last few rivets in now. It's also a challenge because there's so much sealant on the inside to tell which ones you've shot and which ones you haven't. I just kind of had to run along with my fingers and make sure that I didn't miss any. Yeah, there you can see I went back to the paper to mix on. That was a mistake. So now I'm just making the fillets. And I'm definitely slathering a little extra on around those two singular nose tabs just because it looks like a point where it very easily could have a gap in it and let fuel escape. So I'm being a little generous down there. I'll be surprised if this tank doesn't leak, but I really hope it doesn't leak. I don't want to redo this again. Now I'm just adding the dab to each one of the rivet heads. And then, yeah, after I was all done cleaning up, I went and put that end rib in and just held it in with some clecos just to help keep the whole thing pulled up closed while the sealant has time to cure and dry. Once I get the other interior ribs in tomorrow, it should help the overall force. Right now, the only thing holding that skin closed is just the stand it's in and the one rib that's holding it. So anyhow, there's the messy side. I will clean some of that up, and then there's the other side. That didn't come out too bad, actually. Took me about an hour to do that one rib. Hopefully they get quicker. If not, it's going to take some time, because you can see the remaining interior ribs there. So I have 4 more of these to go. And then the 2 end ribs eventually. Anyhow, thanks for stopping by and checking it out. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Leave your comments below. I will see you all on the next one.